Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the history of Edradour Distillery and do a review of the Edradour 10-year-old Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. So before I get into the history and share with you my notes on this whiskey, I should note it's a 700 milliliter bottle, which is typical in the UK and Europe. However, here in the United States, we're used to getting a wee dram more at 750 milliliters, but now to make uniform the size of the bottles, export as well as local, they're now all going to 700 milliliters. So when you see the price of this, keep that in mind. Do I mind it? Yeah, I do. Give me my whiskey. Don't short me a wee dram. But also, if you're going to sell us a little bit less, then reduce the price, which the whiskey industry is not doing, even though they're saving money on not having to do two different size of bottles. All right, enough of the complaining, enough of the ranting. Let's get into the history. Edradour Distillery is located in Pitlochry, Perthshire, in the Highlands of Scotland. The name Edradour means between two rivers in Scottish Gaelic. In 1837, Edradour Distillery was founded in Perthshire by a group of farmers. In 1841, the collective formed McGlashan and Company to run the distillery. In 1886, Edradour Distillery was acquired by John McIntosh and Company. In 1933, Edradour Distillery was sold to William Whiteley and Company. In 1982, Campbell Distillers, part of Pernod Ricard, bought the distillery and added a visitor center. In 2002, Edradour Distillery was bought by signatories Andrew Symington for £5.4 million. In 2006, the distillery released its first peated Ballechen. In 2007, Edradour Distillery began annual wine cask finished whiskeys, beginning with Ballechen Madeira cask. In 2014, the Ballechen 10-year-old was released. Edradour 10-year-old Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. It was aged for 10 years in ex-bourbon and ex-sherry casks. It's bottled at 43% alcohol by volume and sells for anywhere between $60 and $70. So even though this is only at 43% alcohol by volume, I found I really like it. Now, typically, my bare minimum of what I want in a bottle is going to be 46% ABV. Not that, hey, I need a big punch of alcohol per se, but I just find that generally minimum 46 delivers what I'm looking for. And also, the non-chill filtering, no added coloring. Although, to tell you the truth, they may have put a wee touch in there in order to have a consistency in color. It doesn't look any extra dark when you smell and taste it. Now, you saw there in the notes, yes, it's bourbon cask and sherry cask, but it is showing more towards the sherry than it is towards the bourbon. If I were going to try to pull some numbers, I'd say the aroma and flavor profile, we're talking 65-70% sherry notes, and the last part, 20 to 30% somewhere in there on the bourbon notes. So you can dial in how much sherry impression you want by how much bourbon you have. You could either take a completed whiskey that's bourbon, taking a completed whiskey that's sherry, and blend the two to the percentages that you want, as they do at Edradour, or is more common, you spend, let's say, 8 years, 9 years, 9.5 years, whatever, in a bourbon cask, and then spend the rest of the time in a sherry cask, in which case it's a finished whiskey. So on the nose, medium to medium plus intense aromas of typical sherry notes. Dates, figs, raisins, a little bit of spice, a little of a savory barbecue note, some caramel, there's a little earthiness there, there's a hint of chocolate on the palate. First thing I'm going to say is, again, I'm kind of surprised at 43%. It doesn't come across as thin. Usually when you're under 46, the mouthfeel can come across as a little thin. This has a decent amount of viscosity to it. It's also got a good impact of flavor. It doesn't come across as weak. I'm still tasting it now. Get standard cherry note, dried black fruit notes, fig, dates, raisins, caramel. There's a real nice spice going all the way through. A little bit of chocolate, a little brown sugar, a little bit of barbecue rub kind of character on there. So a little bit of little herbs going on there as well. And again, as I'm talking now, I'm still tasting it. To check the viscosity on the whiskey, if you put some in your mouth, hold it there, and then kind of take your tongue with the whiskey sitting on top, take your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Does it feel like water is just rushing off the top of your tongue and down your throat? Or does it feel like there's a little bit of resistance, some thickness that's resisting your tongue and going to the roof of your mouth? That gives you a sense of the viscosity, a real niceness, as well as sort of an overall round mouth coating feel. Or does it glide across your palate like water? A lot of young whiskeys, particularly at the lower ABV, they just seem like they have a lot of water in them. This is done, I would say, really, really, really well. I'm really, really liking this. Tasted blind. Does it come across as a 43% alcohol by volume? In terms of the alcohol feel itself, I'm not getting any burn or anything like that. In terms of the viscosity and the mouthfeel, it comes across as higher. In terms of the intensity of flavor, it's coming across as a little higher. You know, I wouldn't go over 50 if I was doing this blind, 50 ABV, but I would say if you told me 46 to 48, I would believe you 100%, 100%. Now, what am I gonna give it in terms of a score? I'm gonna go solid 88 points, solid 88 points. What I want to get it even higher, get it over 90. Perhaps more transitions, more variance from the front into the middle and into the finish. It's pretty much the same all the way through. But in terms of the length of finish, I mean, that's what's really, really selling this, and the mouthfeel is really, really selling this. It's got a lot of competition out there in the sherry cask world, you know, and in this price range, it is cheaper than a Mac 12. It is cheaper than a Mac 12. And if I were to go, you know, head to head between the Macallan 12 and this one, hands down, I'd probably give it to the Edradour, and yet this is 10 to 15, maybe even $20 cheaper than the Macallan 12. All right, that's it for this video. If you subscribe to this channel, well, thank you very much. If you've not yet subscribed, but you like watching my videos, ask you to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified for when I go live or post a new video. Until next time, cheers. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.